So no bowl of Hoppin' John is complete without a side of greens. And in the South, it's pretty common to find stewed greens that have been cooked in a pot with a lot of water for a really long time. But I really love when greens are in season. They're so sweet and tender, and I like to kind of split the difference in an all-day cook and a quick braise, almost like a stir fry. I wash them, I take them apart, put them in a sink full of cold water, and to cook them properly, just pull the rib out. And to chop them quickly into perfect little ribbons, you just roll it up like a cigar. So I stacked a bunch of leaves together and I rolled it up. And this is a chiffonade or a julienne, but it's just a very simple little cut. And it goes a lot quicker than if you cut them individually, and you'll see that they're perfectly little, easy to cook julienne of greens. And if you have everything the same size, it's going to cook around the same time. So it's important to make sure that things are cut properly. So to properly julienne an onion, you want to cut it in half from pole to pole, north to south. Leave the little root end in there so it'll stay together while you're cutting it. And just start from the side, tilt your knife a little bit, and just go that way. And when I get to the center is when I take that little root out. And then flip it over and finish it up. And in addition to this dish that you may be surprised by is ginger. I think ginger and greens are such a natural combination to julienne it or to have a nice fine mince. You just want to cut some thin slices. And again, you're stacking them up. And you make little matchsticks. And then you stack up the matchsticks. Get them together, and then cut little small mince. And there you have it, very easy. And the last ingredient that you may not be familiar with is coriander. Coriander seed is just, I can't live without it. It's got a beautiful citrusy kind of orange peel note. When it's raw, it has one sort of flavor profile. When you cook it, it's got another flavor profile. It's crucial in pickle brines as a whole seed. But once you grind it and you bloom it in oil, it releases this sort of earthiness. And it's such a natural combination with ginger, onion, and garlic, which is sort of the basis of a lot of Indian aromatics. And I would encourage you to buy whole seed spices, if at all possible. And I think cumin and coriander are showing up a lot more in just regular supermarkets. So if you buy the whole seed, it'll last you months. If you buy the ground coriander, it may already be dead by the time you get it home. So I like to keep whole seed spices on hand and then grind them in small quantities as I need, and keep a few pinches next to your stove if you are cooking with those spices. So I have a coffee grinder that's dedicated to spices. If you don't worry, but I just would encourage you, if you're starting to think about cooking with spices, to make the $20 investment and get just a cheap coffee grinder, and I'll show you how fast this goes. And it smells incredible. And that's about all there is to it. If you have a mortar and pestle, you can do that in a mortar and pestle. And if you don't, just even laying out a few seeds on the cutting board and use the bottom of a heavy skillet. And if they're not perfectly ground, don't worry. I really like getting a little bite of whole seed spices in my food, and I think you will too. So now we can get started with our recipe. Put in a couple of tablespoons of olive oil, and as you can see, my wok is pretty hot. You can use a wide, deep skillet if you don't have a wok, but this kind of makes everything go a lot faster. And we're going to start with our onion. a little salt. And we're not looking for caramelization, just a little bit of translucency. And along with the onion, I'm going to go ahead and add my ginger. I'm going to push everything to the side a little and add my coriander. I'm going to go ahead and add my garlic. Okay, so we've got just a little bit of color on these onions. And I'm going to say that we're ready for our greens. And now this looks like a lot of greens, and it is, but it's going to cook down quite a bit. And you want to put this in your pan or pot in stages. And what I do is kind of like fold the hot onions on top of the collards. And that wilts them down. It gives you a little bit more space in your pan for your next batch. You can put a lid on this if you don't want to turn, if you don't have tongs, it's fine. Okay, you can add a few more. One more little turn. You add a little bit more salt. And I'm going to put some pepper flakes in here. You can use dried chilies if you want, or break them open and use the flakes on the inside. You can skip the pepper altogether if you don't like it spicy. I'm going to add a little beer. You can use hard cider or even white wine. But I like the beer with these greens, and just not even a half a beer, the rest for yourself. Cook share. And I have a little chicken stock. If you want to keep this vegan, you can certainly just use vegetable stock or mushroom stock. And probably won't even, yeah, we'll just use, this is 1 cup. And a little bit of soy sauce just for umami. And that's about it for this phase. You can cover it if you'd like, or you can leave it uncovered if you're going to be around. And it doesn't, like, we're not cooking this for 2 hours or anything. This is going to be a pretty quick cook, and especially these baby collards are already so tender, they don't need that much time. So I've got my collards on low. I put a lid on there just to keep all the juices in the dish. So my pan is super hot. My greens are pretty much done. I'm going to take the lid off, and that's turned down on low, and I'm going to add the rest of the olive oil to this pan. I'm going to give it one more layer of coriander. You just throw that in there, and within seconds, you know, it's sizzling and dancing. It smells delicious. Add some carrots. This is about 3 carrots. I've done this with apples at the end, and it's really delicious. Whatever you have on hand. The idea is that we're going to balance a little bit of bitterness from the greens with something sweet. I'm going to season these with a little salt. Now add a little apple cider vinegar. You can use rice vinegar if you'd like. And a little bit of honey to boost the sweetness. And we're just kind of cooking the carrots a little bit so they retain their texture. And we're going to pour that whole thing right into the greens and toss it around. Beautiful color. We are done. And just to boost the ginger flavor a little bit, add a little finely grated ginger. You can do this on a microplane. And there you have it. Pretty wintry collards.